You were trying to change from a place that you assumed something was wrong. And that assumption, subtle, spiritualized, even well-intentioned, was the real vibration being broadcast. Not abundance, not alignment, not trust, but resistance. And here's the paradox. Nothing will change while you're trying to change it. If your trying is rooted in rejection of what is, because in the quantum field, your state of being is the frequency that determines what collapses. And if your state is this needs to be fixed, the field mirrors back a life that reflects more brokenness. This is the hidden trap of self-improvement. We get seduced by the idea that more change equals more worth, that the future version of us, more healed, more disciplined, more spiritual, is the one who deserves the life we want. So we push, we strive, we do the work. But energetically, we're telling the universe, who I am now is not enough. And the field, always neutral and precise, reflects that back. It doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you are. And if who you are is someone chasing change to escape yourself, you'll keep chasing, not because the tools don't work, but because the identity using them is out of alignment. This is the paradox of quantum shift. Change doesn't happen because you struggle against what is. It happens because you stop resisting what is. And in that space of acceptance, the energy reorganizes. Possibilities you couldn't see from a place of fight begin to appear effortlessly, not because you force them, because you finally aligned. Let's go deeper. The moment you say, I need to change this, you create a vibrational split. One part you wants anew, but another part is subtly affirming that what currently exists is wrong. And that signal, the frequency of rejection, and becomes the active vibration. The quantum field responds to that tone. So even when you visualize a new version of yourself, you're still vibrating as someone who resists the present. And resistance always amplifies what it's aimed at. This is why your life doesn't change when you try to escape it. It changes when you stop needing to escape it. Because only then are you vibrating at the level of neutrality, presence, allowance, the fertile ground from which true transformation grows. But here's what's tricky. This is completely counterintuitive to everything we've been taught. We're conditioned to believe that change comes from effort, that if you don't like your situation, you should fight harder, grind more, optimize every second. But in the quantum world, effort that comes from lack doesn't produce expansion. It produces more tension, more proof that the change still hasn't happened. And this isn't about giving up. This is about shifting the source of your desire to change. Is it coming from fear, from not enoughness, from a belief that your current reality is unacceptable? Or is it coming from expansion, from joy, from the recognition that nothing needs to change or you be whole? And from that wholeness, change becomes effortless. This is what we'll unpack in this video. You'll learn why the act of trying often pushes your goal further away, and how to step into a frequency that invites change without force. You'll see how surrender isn't weakness, but the highest form of energetic intelligence. And you'll begin to feel what it's like to live from a state that no longer says I need to fix this, but rather I'm already whole and my reality is catching up. Because the moment you stop trying to change everything is the moment everything finally has space to change. There's a law in the quantum universe more powerful than effort, more direct than strategy, more magnetic than willpower. It's not taught in schools. It's often dismissed by those who idolize hustle. But once you understand it, truly embody it, your entire relationship with change dissolves and reforms. This is the law of allowing, and it may be the most counterintuitive spiritual law you'll ever learn, because it tells you this. What you resist persists, and what you allow transforms. This isn't just philosophy, it's physics. Quantum mechanics has shown us that particles do not behave independently of the observer. They respond how you look at them, with pressure, with expectation, with neutrality, or with fear. Your very observation collapses the wave of possibility into form. But more importantly, the quality of your observation determines what form takes shape. And that's where allowing comes in. Most people approach manifestation like they're negotiating with the universe. They visualize hard. They script obsessively. They ask, believe, receive with tightly clenched fists. But the field doesn't respond to tension. It responds to openness. The more you try to change your reality from a place of urgency, the more you emit the signal. This is not okay yet. And the field with perfect neutrality responds with more scenarios that match that vibration of not okay. It doesn't matter how inspiring your vision is. It doesn't matter how positive your language is. If your state is rooted in resistance, the signal is scrambled, and so you live in a loop. Effort, expectation, disappointment, more effort. Not because you're doing it wrong, but because you've been trained to believe that pressure equals power. But in the quantum field, clarity equals power. And clarity comes not from control, but from coherence. And coherence is only possible when you're no longer in a vibrational fight with what is. Let's break this down further. Try to fix your reality implies judgment, a silent message to the field. What's here now is wrong, and I refuse to accept it. But that very message becomes your frequency, and your frequency is what selects the next frame of reality. So your resistance doesn't push away the problem. It collapses a version of reality where the problem remains dominant. This is what Abraham Hicks has been teaching for decades. You cannot have a happy ending to an unhappy journey. You can't reach peace through frustration. You can't reach flow through force. You can't embody a new life while resisting the one you're in. The law of allowing tells us that the path of least resistance is also the path of greatest alignment. When you stop demanding change from the field and begin aligning your energy with a version of you that doesn't need things to change, change begins to happen on its own. This is why surrender is so misunderstood. People think surrender means giving up, but true surrender is opening. It's a decision to stop projecting not enough into the future and start radiating already whole in the present. And from that state, miracles don't feel miraculous. They feel inevitable. John Wheeler, a quantum physicist and contemporary of Einstein, spoke of the universe as a participatory field, one that responds not to mechanical force, but to consciousness. He said, "No phenomenon is a phenomenon until it is an observed phenomenon. But observation isn't just looking, it's relating. It's how you feel about what you see." So if you're constantly looking at your reality with judgment, pressure, and patience, that's the observation the field responds to. You're not just witnessing reality. You're energizing a version of it you most dislike, and then wondering why it won't shift. The moment you begin to truly allow the present as it is, you step out of that cycle. You free up your frequency. You move from this must change so I trust what's unfolding. And in that space, something incredible happens. New timelines become available. Timelines that don't require effort, only alignment. So here's the invitation. Pause. Look at your life not with judgment, but with presence. Can you allow what is on without trying to fix it? Can you observe without attachment? Can you bring curiosity instead of contraction? Because when you do, the field hears that clarity. It received the message. This is someone who's no longer broadcasting resistance. This is someone who is available for coherence. And coherence is what collapses realities. In the next chapter, we'll explore what's really running the show when you feel stuck. Not your goals, but the identity from which you're trying to change. You'll see how the energy of fixing yourself often keeps you vibrating as a version of you that believes you're broken. But now you're starting to remember. You don't change your life by rejecting it. You change it by aligning with a version of you who already doesn't need to. It's easy to think your problem is about circumstances, the job that hasn't come yet, the relationship that hasn't healed, the bank balance that doesn't match your vision board. And so you try to change the situation with tools, effort, action, repetition. But all the while, there's something deeper, quieter, far more powerful running the show. It's not the situation, it's your identity. Because no matter how much you want to shift your life, the universe doesn't respond to your wishes. It responds to your self-concept, who you believe you are beneath the surface. And for most people, the energy behind the desire to change isn't empowerment. It's compensation. They're not creating from fullness. They're creating to fix something they believe is broken. This is the emotional root of most spiritual effort. The belief, often unconscious, that I am not yet enough, and until that changes, nothing else can change either. So we build rituals around this belief. We try to heal it with more work, but all of that is still energy being sent from the same source. I am not there yet. I must earn the shift. And so the field responds accordingly, not with breakthrough, but with more experiences that confirm your original identity. Not there yet. This is what the quantum field does with precision. It reflects a vibration of your self-perception. Not your goals, not your routines, but the emotional signature of who you believe yourself to be. Let's make it practical. If you see yourself as someone who's always working on themselves, you might never become the version of you who simply is. If your identity is wrapped around being the struggler, the overcomer, the almost there one, then your field will keep serving you opportunities to stay in that character, not because you're cursed, because you're consistent. This is an emotional loop. You want change. You assume it's not here yet. You act to get it. You reinforce the identity of someone who lacks it. The field responds with more delay and around you go. So the question becomes, from where are you trying to change? Is it from the identity of someone worthy, whole, already aligned, or from someone still proving, still fixing, still waiting? This is what neuroscience also teaches us. Dr. Joe Dispenza explains that your body memorizes emotional states, not just thoughts, but entire biochemical identities. If you spent years feeling unworthy, anxious, or unseen, your body adapts to that feeling as your baseline. It becomes your energetic home. And even if your mind desires a new life, your body will pull you back to the old state, because that's what feels familiar. That's what feels safe. In other words, you're not addicted to struggle. You're identified with it. And identity is magnetic. So even your efforts to heal may come from the frequency of someone who believes they need healing. And so the healing never quite completes because the identity underneath is still active. This is the paradox. Real change happens not when you try to escape your identity, but when you realize you don't need to fix it in order to shift. The goal is not to become someone else. It's to return to the version of you who was always whole underneath the programming. Because once your identity shifts, everything else follows. The actions you take, the emotions you allow, the people you attract, the timelines that become visible. You don't need to try harder. You need to become coherent with a new version of you. One who doesn't need to fight their way to transformation, but who naturally expresses the frequency of what they desire. Neville Goddard said it simply: change your conception of yourself, and you will automatically change the world in which you live. He wasn't asking you to pretend. He was asking you to feel as real the version of you who no longer resists, doubts, or needs to prove. And the only way to do that is to stop acting from the identity of lack, even if your current reality reflects that lack. Because the moment you align with the identity that doesn't need change to feel whole, you collapse a new timeline, one that vibrationally matches your new emotional truth. So ask yourself now, not what you want to fix, but who you've been being. What emotional signature have you been calling normal? And are you willing to let that version of you fall away, not through effort, but through release? In the next chapter, we'll explore exactly how to do that. We'll shift from fixing to frequency. Because the truth is, you were never broken. You were simply repeating a signal your body had memorized. And the moment you choose a new frequency, the old identity begins to dissolve. Not because you changed it, but because you no longer needed it. There's a moment, subtle but powerful, when you realize that all your effort to change, heal, or improve has been sending a very specific signal to the quantum field. Not I am ready, not I am open, but this I am not there yet. And that's the moment when the whole illusion starts to crack, because now you see it. The very energy of trying to fix is the same energy that keeps the old version of you alive. It's not your tools. It's not your effort. It's the frequency from which you're doing it all. This is the invisible wall so many seekers hit. They do the meditations, repeat the affirmations, follow the routines, but all of it is still rooted in the identity of someone who believes they need to shift. And that belief, silent but steady, becomes the dominant frequency. It tells the field, I'm not yet who I want to be. And so reality reflects that back, not because the work is invaluable, but because the signal is still out of alignment. So how do you break the loop? You stop fixing, and you start tuning. Tuning is not effort. Tuning is not control. Tuning is emotional resonance. It's choosing to enter a state not because you've earned it, not because reality has confirmed it, but because you decided this is now your new normal. It's the difference between trying to become and choosing to be. This is a shift from seeing frequency as a future result to seeing it as a now decision. The version of you that's already abundant doesn't wake up thinking about scarcity. The version of you who is already healed isn't obsessing over old wounds. The version of you who is fully in alignment isn't looping thoughts like, am I doing this right? And here's the paradox. You don't reach that version by fixing the one you are now. You reach it by dropping the identity of the fixer entirely. Because fixing is a vibration. It carries tension, urgency, lack, the unspoken assumption that something's wrong. But you cannot align with the life you want from a state that believes you are fundamentally broken. So let's transmute that energy right now. Close your eyes. Breathe slowly. Imagine that all the effort, all the striving, all the proving is simply a fog around you. And you, the one behind it, are already whole, already present, already vibrating the frequency of peace, clarity, alignment. You're not trying to get there. You are there. You always were. Feel what that version of you would feel. Calm, grounded, free. They don't need to force. They don't need to beg. They don't need to fix. They simply are. Let that feeling settle into your nervous system, not as a future goal, but as a current truth. Comment below. I release the need to fix it. Let that sentence become your calibration, a signal to the field, a declaration to yourself that the game of self-rejection is over, and the frequency of coherence has begun. Because once you stop fixing yourself, something opens, a stillness, a magnetism, a softness in your field that says, I no longer need to become because I've remembered who I already am. And the universe rushes to meet that. Why? Because now you're not requesting change. You're radiating wholeness. And wholeness is irresistible to the field. This is not a metaphor. It's quantum logic. When you emit the frequency of already being, without resistance, without doubt, without performance, you collapse into timelines that match that exact vibration. People respond differently. Money moves differently. Ideas and synchronicities begin to land without effort because you've stopped communicating need and started broadcasting now. And the field is always listening. So the next time your mind wants to push harder, do more, analyze every detail, pause and ask, is this action coming from alignment or from anxiety? Because aligned action flows, it expands, it feels natural. But anxious action contracts, it controls. It sends a message. If I don't do this, it won't work. And that's a belief rooted in misalignment. The truth is, you don't need to fix what was never broken. You only need to choose a new broadcast and trust that reality responds not to what you do, but to what you are. In the next chapter, we'll go deeper into this state, the magnetic stillness that arises when you finally surrender the struggle. You'll learn why surrender isn't passive, but one of the most vibrationally powerful states you can enter. One that doesn't beg the universe for change, but invites it with grace. Because once you stop resisting what is, you become available for what can be. There's a silence that doesn't come from giving up. It comes from arriving. A stillness that isn't passivity, but power. A space within you that doesn't need to prove, fix, or force because it already knows. And that stillness, once embodied, becomes magnetic because the quantum field doesn't respond to force. It responds to resonance. And resonance begins where resistance ends. This is the frequency of surrender, not the surrender of defeat, where you collapse from exhaustion, but the surrender of alignment, where you rise from certainty. When you finally stop fighting with the now, stop arguing with your life, your past, your identity, and simply allow what is to be enough even for a moment, you enter a completely different vibrational range. You shift from seeking to seeing, from tension to coherence, and from making it happen to letting it land. Because here's what most people miss. Try to force the future keeps you entangled with a present you secretly reject. You become a vibrational contradiction, asking for freedom while broadcasting resistance, asking for peace while vibrating urgency. And the field, always mirroring, reflects that back. But when you surrender, truly surrender, you collapse the gap. You're no longer the version of you trying to become. You're simply being. And being is the frequency that carries the highest creative power. In quantum terms, surrender is not an action. It is non-inference. You stop collapsing the same timelines over and over again with the frequency of still not enough. And in that pause, that sacred gap, where effort ends and presence begins, the field can finally respond to something new. Let's be clear. Surrender is not spiritual laziness. It's vibrational precision. It's choosing to stop interrupting the flow of what's already becoming with your unconscious signal of urgency. Because when you say, I must change this, you imply it isn't already changing. But when you say, I allow this, you become the space through which change flows. This is the paradox of quantum shift. The moment you stop needing change, change becomes possible because you're no longer holding it at bay with your attachment. You're no longer reinforcing the timeline where things aren't yet how they should be. You've stepped into a version of you who says, I no longer require evidence to feel aligned. I no longer delay my peace for a future outcome. I no longer shrink into effort. I rise into coherence. And in that stillness, the field organizes. Ideas come. People shift. Coincidences emerge. Not because you force them, but because you got out of the way. Dr. Joe Dispenza calls this entering the quantum void. It's a state where identity dissolves, expectation disappears, and what's left is pure potential, pure vibration. In this state, the old you isn't being improved, it's being replaced. Not by trying, but by truth. And the truth is, you were never incomplete. You were simply vibrating from an idea of yourself that was too small. And now in surrender, you remembered who you really are. The one who doesn't force love, but is love. The one who doesn't chase abundance, but radiates it. The one who doesn't collapse timelines through control, but attracts them through stillness. Neville Goddard described this state when he said, be still and know that you are that which you desire to be. He didn't say, be still and wait. He said, no, feel it, claim it, without effort, without resistance, without delay. This is the frequency the field understands. So now ask yourself, where in my life am I still trying to make something happen instead of allowing it to become through me? Where am I still broadcasting urgency instead of living from the wholeness that already exists beneath it? Because once you recognize the energy of surrender, not as giving up, but as giving permission, you stop running in circles. You stop overthinking every vibration. You stop micromanaging your own evolution. And you start radiating the most magnetic frequency in the universe presence. In the final chapter, we'll bring everything together not as a conclusion, but as a return to the version of you who doesn't need to fix anything to feel aligned, a version of you who stopped chasing change and became it. Because the most profound shift isn't external. It's the moment you feel deep in your nervous system, I'm already here. It was never about fixing. It was never about chasing. And it was never about becoming someone else. The whole journey, every desire, every frustration, every attempt to shift was always leading you back to one realization. So profound it dissolves every strategy and every strain. You were never broken. You were just becoming. And now here you are. Not perfect, but present. Not finished, but found. Not in resistance to what is, but in resonance with what wants to emerge through you. This is not the end of the path. This is a remembering. The place where the false effort falls away, where the old identity releases its grip, where the trying finally gives way to trust. Because once you stop believing that something has to change before you can feel free, you become free. Once you stop needing proof, before you allow peace, you become peaceful. And once you stop waiting for the future to deliver who you already are, the future arrives. Effort dissolves. Struggle evaporates. The loop ends. And in its place, stillness, rich, intelligent, magnetic. A stillness that no longer seeks outcomes as evidence of worth. A stillness that understands. I don't align by force. I align by being. So what happens now? You start to live from a deeper rhythm. One that doesn't need to rush. One that doesn't try to match anyone else's pace. One that trusts the field because it trusts itself. And the field begins to notice. You're no longer begging the quantum to deliver what you want. You're embodying what the quantum already knows. You are the frequency. You are the portal through which realities shift. Not when you fix more, but when you finally allow yourself to live as if it's already done. And this is what separates those who transform from those who keep looping. The ones who shift are not the ones who try the hardest. They're the ones who stop postponing their coherence. They're the ones who say, I don't need another sign. I don't need to fix one more part of me. I don't need to earn the next timeline. I'm already here. And if you felt that truth rise within you, even just a spark, don't let it fade. Cultivate it. Stay close to it. Let it reshape how you speak, how you breathe, how you meet your day. Let that inner alignment become your new baseline. This is your invitation not to start over, but to finally return. Return to the part of you that was always waiting not for more work, but for your permission. So ask yourself now one last time, what if nothing needs to change for everything to shift? What if the very act of trying to change was the last veil? And now that it's gone, what's left is just you whole, aligned, available. You were never broken. You were simply remembering the frequency of who you've always been. And now that you remembered, there's nothing left to fix.